We begin with the Bloc Québécois threat to topple the Liberal government. Today is October 29th, the deadline the Bloc gave the Liberals to pass two of its bills into law. One, to boost pension payments for some seniors. The second, to protect supply management in future trade negotiations. Neither demand was met, so Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet says he is ready to vote non-confidence in the government.
I'm ready for an election. Not only are we ready, but we might be expecting that with enthusiasm. If before they fall, they give us all we have asked under the terms that we have described, we don't have a choice but to take it. But we are not negotiating anything as we speak. We are negotiating with opposition parties in order to have the government be
so that will mean your support is...
The Bloc's House leader sent a letter to his Conservative and NDP counterparts this morning advising them that the Bloc will begin supporting motions of non-confidence in the House of Commons. Bloc Deputy House Leader Christine Normandin joins me now. It's good to see you. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
So your leader says he's ready for an election. He's ready to see the government fall. You're prepared to vote non-confidence. Are you eager to vote non-confidence? Are you itching for an election right now?
Well, when we decided to give the government an ultimatum, we mentioned that if we were only thinking about our own interests, we'd be already toppling the government. But we wanted to give the government a chance to help the seniors and to help the farmers with two bills that were already far along the voting process. So we were not thinking about ourselves. But now that the ultimatum has been met, government basically said no to farmers, no to seniors, and we're ready to give the population a chance to say no to the Liberals.
Have they really said no to farmers? Because that is working its way through the Senate. They don't control it the way they did 20 years ago, for example, but they have endorsed it. They voted for it. The supply management demand will be met. It's just not by today. You accept that as a premise?
We can still hope, but during the 5 weeks that we gave the government, we mentioned that one of the senators blocking the bill was one of the Prime Minister's early friend. There could have been some calls made. Some minister did. So we were waiting for the Prime Minister to do something himself, but he seemed to be rather busy with his own party and trying to survive instead of working along with us in order to have the Senate do the right thing and uphold democracy, because the bill was voted in the House and it took something like a year and a half before going along further.
No, they did write the Senate to tell them to hurry up, and they were told to mind their own business. So I want to understand the state of play here, because some ministers suggested this morning that conversations are still happening with the Bloc Québécois. Jean-Yves Duclos said this was an artificial ultimatum. What do you make of that? Are you still having conversations with
Well,
the
they can try to test us if they think it is artificial. But we gave them 5 weeks in order to negotiate with us and discuss with us. And in the end, it led to nowhere. So if they present us with something very firm that would meet all our criteria, we'd be silly not to look at it, because we still want to help the population we represent. But they had 5 weeks to do so, and that's the reason why now we're telling them, well, we had discussions with you, now we're going to have discussions with the opposition parties, and you'll have a stronger headwind against you. So if they bring something to the table, it will have to be something very decent and very close to what we asked for.
Very close to what we asked for, or exactly what you asked for, as Mr. Blanchet said.
Exactly what we asked for, and maybe just in the means of bringing it to the House would be negotiable, but the content will have to be the same.
So you say you're going to start the conversations with the other opposition parties. Have those started? Because Andrew Scheer sent a statement today. He's the House leader for the Conservatives. He's essentially saying the NDP are the last ones standing, propping up Trudeau and subjecting Canadians to more misery, is what he says. He calls them sellouts, saying as they have been doing. And he says if Jagmeet Singh clearly says he will vote to defeat the Liberal government, then the Conservatives will bring another confidence motion at the earliest opportunity. Have you had conversations with the NDP about whether they're ready to bring down this government? It seems to me like they're not. They wouldn't necessarily want to have an election anytime soon.
Well, without having to go in details about what's going to happen behind the curtains, I think we're playing with a rather open book. And we've gave the playbook to the parties today. With regards to the Conservatives, we mentioned that we need a motion that would be clear and simple, not poisoned with carbon tax or something against secularism or language in order for us to vote with it, because we don't want to go against our values. And with regards to the NDP, I think they'd have to pay a rather high political price if they were to support the government after having been very vocal about tearing up the agreement. So basically what's happening today is that the government is saying no to farmers, no to seniors, and they'd be the one supporting the government. So it'd be basically if they themselves said no to seniors and farmers, so that would come with a rather high political price, I think. So that will be part of the discussions for sure.
So, I mean, the government would say they're saying yes to farmers because they did vote for it and they're trying to get it through the Senate. And they're saying no to your specific demand for seniors. Did they come to you with any kind of a counter proposal? Because my understanding was the Finance Department was working on a boost to the old age security payments for the 65 to 74 group you're trying to help, but one that wasn't the full $3 billion that you were looking for, because they disagree with the idea that seniors with really high incomes should get more money. Did they come to you with a counter proposal?
Well, if we're where we are today is because they haven't come with something that we would have been acceptable to us. And one of the thing is, if they came with a counter proposal that would mean more delays, it was a reason to say no just because of that. It's a government that was already on life support, and we gave them the opportunity to live a bit longer, but not forever neither. So if they, for example, decided to come with a different bill, it would still have had to go through the whole process of the voting committees and everything. It would just have been buying time on the side of the Liberals, and we know that they're good at buying time. So that's the reason we gave the 5 weeks, and that's the reason we say we want the bill that we presented that's already gone through the process, and that's basically fixing the discrimination that you guys created yourself between two categories of seniors.
Well, your demand was essentially that they buy time by coming with the money. But I just want to make sure I'm clear. Did they come with a counter proposal? But it fell short. But they did put something on the table that they were willing to do, that it wasn't enough?
Well, I wouldn't go into what could have been said behind the curtains, but we were clear on what our requests were, and they were not met. So that's that is clear enough. And we mentioned we won't agree on something different than what we asked for. So whether they decided to send something new on the table, make a proposal, if it was not what we asked for, that could be managed in a quick period of time, we would have said no anyways.
Okay, so but if they come with something, even though it's past the deadline, you would vote to support it and not necessarily rush to a non-confidence, because Mr. Blanchet said that if they give us everything we want, we'll say yes, essentially. That's where
we'll at least look at it. So because we'd be silly to skip an opportunity to help the people we represent.
So right now there is no vote, a confidence motion or non-confidence vote on the agenda that I've seen in Parliament, because there is what amounts to a filibuster as this debate on privilege continues over the disclosure of documents to Parliament. You said it needs to be an unpolluted and clear motion. Now, I think it was the first non-confidence vote was simply this House has no confidence in the government. If that comes back, do you vote yes this time?
We will, and we've mentioned it rather clearly today. So it's a kind of giving the Conservatives the playbook to how we could help us defeat the government. So it's if it's in a really clear, easy, straightforward motion, it's easier for us to vote for it, whether instead of something that's polluted, and it might be easier as well for the NDP. That's something that they have to consider. If it's rather blunt and clear, instead of going against the environment, or it will make it easier for all opposition parties to have discussions.
Okay, so right now there's obviously pressure on the Conservatives to end their filibuster to get this motion on the table, should they choose to go this route, and then pressure on Jagmeet Singh and the NDP to decide exactly what they want to do. What is your sense right now? Do you think an election between now and the Christmas holidays is likely, or do you think this does spill into 2025 at this point in time?
I would not bet on an early election, but if it were to go that way, it would have to start with the Conservatives ending the filibuster on their own motion. So if we want to start having a real legislative agenda in the House, it will start with them.
Right.
So, and we made that clear. Please stop filibustering so we can start having discussions on your eventual opposition day motion and a non-confidence vote.
Okay, you say you wouldn't bet on an early election, I mean this fall, because like the spring would be early. We're not making it to October of next year.
Early.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, all right, well, that's Bloc Deputy House Leader Christine Normandin. Thank you so much for coming in with the update. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
All right, let's bring in the Tuesday Power Panel to talk about all of this. Emily Nicolas is a columnist for Le Devoir. Amanda Alvaro is a former Liberal Party communication strategist. Françoise Boivin is a former NDP MP. And here with me in the studio, Kate Harrison is a Conservative political analyst. Emily, I would like to start with you. Where do you think we are now that the Bloc deadline has swooshed by? Because you and I never miss deadlines in our professional life. And they say they're willing to bring the government down, but there is no confidence motion on the books. They're in this filibuster over privilege. And look, it's almost November, and that means a Christmas election if it happens soon. Where are we?
We are in a lot of big words, I think. In a sense that Yves-François Blanchet wants to, be ready for election, wants to be ready to make this government fall. At the same time, just a month earlier, we will remember he was essentially saying that propping this government down now wasn't necessarily the best idea. If it was to give the Conservatives a majority, that would not be in the interests of Quebecers either. And so that could be a good question for Yves-François Blanchet, whether or not he still agrees with his own quote. But basically, we're left with everything hanging in the hands of the NDP if there was still a confidence motion soon, and we'll see where they stand. We'll see where they stand with the Liberal caucus as well, and whether or not the Liberal caucus will get this act together. And then there's an American election, and so it seems like either way, there is no scenario in which there is a focus on the actual policy, actual bills in the House of Commons in the next couple of days or weeks. It feels like this parliamentary session is on, but either Canadians' intention will be south of the border, or all the political parties are busy with the politics rather than with the actual laws. And it seems like the parliamentary session is already over, although it's actually still going on. So it's a weird political fall in Canada.
Yeah. You know what? It's a weird political fall in Canada is about the perfect statement. It should be like the new tagline for this show. But, Kate, it almost felt like when Mr. Blanchet set the deadline so late in October, that it kind of precluded the idea of a fall election. And to Emily's point, that this puts everything on the NDP. Andrew Scheer, the Conservative House Leader, issued a statement saying the NDP are the last one standing, called him sellout Jagmeet Singh, as they often do, and says they will bring another confidence motion at the earliest opportunity if Jagmeet Singh clearly says he will vote to defeat the Liberal government. So it's all up to Jagmeet now, Andrew Scheer says.
And he's been pretty clear that, he doesn't want to trigger an election right away. Over the weekend, he made that clear. He said it's imminent, clearly not too imminent. If it's not going to happen, I think, as Emily rightly points out, probably not this fall. I would describe the time that we're in as ineffective stasis, and that is serving really two interests. It's serving the government interest at the moment because all of this confusion does allow them a little bit of time to try and bring caucus back into the circle, come up with the campaign plan that it sounds like hasn't been worked on for some time, and it serves the NDP because they get to continue to, survive. Jagmeet Singh makes it closer to February, which is a key deadline for him, and we gear up for what was kind of, I think, probably anticipated, which would be sometime in the spring. Things would, the government would come down. It's bad, of course, for Canadians, a lot of whom are indicating they would like to see a change. So it's going to be very tough for Jagmeet Singh to continue to make the case that he is contrast to Justin Trudeau when he had the big stunt in September, Nothing has changed since. He's continuing to support the government. If that continues into 6 months, which by the end of February it will be, trying to draw that contrast is going to be, I think, impossible for Singh.
Yeah, he rips up a letter and conservative Liberal MPs sign a letter, and there's no follow-through on either of it. It's just things kind of continue. But Amanda, they are going to get a briefing tomorrow from Andrew Bevan, the National Campaign Director. The Liberal MPs are at their caucus meeting about election preps. To this point, they're staffing up. They've secured a plane, I'm told, for the campaign, and they're testing some ads that will apparently roll out next week. On the NDP, though, if you look at what happened in British Columbia, and Jagmeet Singh's seat and caucus is largely British Columbia MPs, they can't be looking at John Rustad getting 44 seats and thinking now is the time for us to pull the plug, given the volatility out there, right?
Yeah, and that's but one issue that they're facing, right? Their numbers are still low in the polls. They still have a lot of fundraising to do. They've been, their most senior team has been engaged in provincial elections. There is no reason for them to go to the polls right now. So I agree with what all of the other panelists had said already, which is that this is not, I don't think, imminent. I don't think this is a fall election in the making. I think the very earliest that we would see something like this happening would be the spring. And frankly, the Bloc knows that too. And that's why so much of this was really less about negotiation. This wasn't about negotiation. This was about grandstanding, right? This was these absurdly unrealistic deadlines to get to very unrealistic results, was about making headlines, and it served that purpose for Blanchet, and it served that purpose for the Bloc. And now the keys are being handed back over to the NDP and putting them in the power position to make this decision. But I agree with Kate, this actually all works out quite well for the government because it gives them, I think, more time. And while we're hearing about campaign readiness, I still don't think that the government, the Liberal Party is ready to go to the next election. I think that there's funds to be raised. I think that they need to get some of their house in order. So time is of the essence. And I don't think any Canadian wants to go to the polls right before the holidays. All of the parties know this. This is about making noise on the airwaves and who gets the microphone at what given time.
Françoise, isn't it amazing that the federal election will be the only election that doesn't happen in the fall, considering that either all the others have or Nova Scotia's going early, and of course we've got America coming up in a week from now. This is a lot of positioning from the Bloc Québécois, and I don't say that to insult them, but they've clearly planted their flag as defenders of the key agricultural sectors in the Quebec economy, and as a champion for boosting pension benefits for seniors, a very important voting bloc in Quebec, right?
Oh, definitely. And what amazes me is that anybody even believed that it was a true negotiation, that it was a true deadline that was set there. I mean, they could have picked other files that were, excuse me, way more important in their eyes that they could have, if they really wanted to deal with the Liberals. They took two files that they knew were not really in contention, but they knew that the one in the Senate, the government could not fast pace it. But at the same time, they wanted to be able to say a win-win. We don't get nothing, which we probably won't, and we'll still look like the big defender of the seniors, of the farmers, the producers, and that's a big chunk of our electoral thing. Not only that, just remember, that was the 25th of September that Yves-François Blanchet made gave his ultimatum to the Liberal government. And since then, not 5 weeks passed because of that. There was 1 week that they were all off because of Thanksgiving. Right. They've been frozen in the House. Nothing really happened, which makes me wonder if there's really an importance attached to the role of our legislature because hey, I mean, nothing happens and nobody seems to even realize, no Canadian. So it's time for an election. And don't think that it might not be still happening. If I was Trudeau, and maybe Amanda's got more connection toward Justin Trudeau, I wouldn't let these bums decide on my future and who's going to be the one supporting or not supporting, or which motion, what text will they present. I'd say, you know what? Let's go fight it off. Prepare or not prepared. It's like a football game and a big Hail Mary pass. That's going to be pretty much the campaign for the Liberals. And see, you never know. It can be caught. And it changed the whole situation. So don't all just book your Christmas vacation yet.
Okay, you keep saying this. It's like the Conservatives in this town who keep saying there's going to be prorogation. And like, you don't start a football game, you don't know if your quarterback's going to start and finish the game. So they got to figure that out first. But look, I want to show you some other developments today, because the Bloc isn't the Liberal government's only challenges. Some Liberal MPs are calling for a secret caucus vote now on Justin Trudeau's leadership. Listen to this.
We're a Democratic Party, and I think a secret ballot is important for members to be able to provide their input.
I think secret ballots would be helpful, always has.
And how come it would be helpful? How would it be helpful?
It ensures that the caucus's opinion has been heard by the Prime Minister in an important way.
We really need to settle this once and for all, and I think that the best pathway is to have a secret ballot.
I think a secret ballot would be a good thing. I wish there was a mechanism for it. I hope it happens in the absence of a mechanism, but I guess we'll know tomorrow.
Well, Kate, as the Conservatives can tell you, there is a mechanism for it if you adopt the Michael Chong Reform Act, and Aaron O'Toole says hello. What do you make of this shift, though, that they sent the letter, didn't get the answer they want, and now a lot of those MPs we saw there are people who spoke out in the caucus meeting, we think they've signed the letter. They're now trying to go to Plan B here.
Yeah, they're laying out their escalation steps, which was obviously missing from last week's letter. I think the secret ballot thing, you're an MP, you're elected to represent your constituency. I think that if your constituents are telling you that Trudeau has to go, you should feel empowered to stand up at a caucus meeting and say, we don't want to see you head into the next election. Then again, I gather that you have to apply to speak at Liberal caucus meetings. So I can anticipate it's not an open forum for discussion in the way that other caucuses are held. I also would just question the efficacy at this point, because Trudeau has dug in. His cabinet has dug in. And the people around him telling him that he absolutely can do this and win this have dug in. So secret ballot or not, unless we're talking about, a swing, to a multitude of 3 times the number of MPs we're talking about, it won't move the needle.
Yeah, I spoke to one of the MPs, Amanda, who wants the Prime Minister to leave, and I said, he's given you his answer. And they said, well, he's given what he thinks is his answer. I'm like, do you know a different Justin Trudeau than I know? Because he had his sweat glands surgically removed. Like, this guy stares people down, and, he does not back down from a fight. I don't see this getting any traction, and I don't see it being in the Prime Minister's interest to agree to this.
No, I actually think they should just do the secret ballot. Okay, do the secret. You had the secret letter, the anonymous letter. Then you had the open meeting, and now you want the secret ballot. Like, what comes? Okay, then do the secret ballot. And then what? Like, at some point, you have to ask these MPs, are you with the right party, right? Are you where you need to be? Because the leader has made it clear that he's where he wants to be. The majority of caucus has made it clear that they're where they want to be. And then there's, this minority group of dissenters who are raising this issue again and again. And to what end? And to what value? At some point, you're just doing so much more damage because you're seeding more doubt. So you have to either get over it. This is the way it's going. This is the leader who's the leader of the party. The majority of caucus and cabinet is behind this leader. They're ready to go to the next election. And we're the small group with a grievance that isn't getting resolved the way that we want. It seems like it's about you, not about him. So make a choice. But you might as well get it over with then. Do the secret ballot. The secret ballot will fall in his favor. And then these MPs will have to decide which team they're on.
Well, François, the secret ballot will fall in his favor unless it doesn't. Because who knows, right? With the way politics is these days. I'm not saying that he'd lose it, Amanda. I see your reaction. It seems like a risk to do it after you said you're not going, and you've won 3 national elections. You are the Prime Minister. You are the Liberal leader. It's your right. What do you make of this move? They've got a caucus meeting tomorrow. They make a big move tomorrow, or it all falls apart by the time the U.S. election happens, don't you think?
Well, yeah, big move. I don't know which big move. They had their opportunity last week. And it was still tiptoeing. It's thank God for the Liberal Party of Canada, because if life was not miserable enough for them, they just have to compound on their own problems and making it a big reality TV show every week. I'd be so sick and tired of this, because I'm watching QP religiously to, I don't know why, but anyway, I still do. And there's some there's some good confrontation there between the Conservatives and the Liberals, between the NDP and the Liberals, and the same with the Bloc. There's some good topics there. And meanwhile, the backbenchers of the Liberals are saying, "Hey, we want our leader to go." You lost that battle. You were not even strong enough to make a big case out of it and put maybe a or else. I still don't know what the or else was. So you come back the next week and you say, "Oh, you know what? What about a secret ballot?" Because we were not gutsy enough to go in front of the mics, all 24 of us, and say, "We want you out." We were not yet sure that they wanted him out or just to think about it. He thought about it, gave the answer 24 hours later. For once, Trudeau is fast. That's awesome. And just move along. Get ready for the next campaign. It's coming soon.
Yeah, Sophie Chattel, the MP for Pontiac, I'm told, has the actual document with the signatures on it. It hasn't released it, but it is the lack of the or else, as you say, Françoise. Emily, it reminds me of the old Robin Williams joke about police in London not having guns and shouting "stop," or I'll say "stop again." And it's kind of where we are. I mean, your last word on this call for a secret ballot, Emily, and whether you think this goes anywhere.
I don't know if it goes anywhere, but I do think that, or I do know that several of the MPs who are calling for it have also gone on the record saying, basically, it would be a good idea, first of all, to put this to rest. So basically saying it would be their last steps. And then also saying that if you think you can win, there is no reason for you to fear it. And I think it's important. I understand that the mood is to mock what they're saying. But I do want to make the point that if you truly believe that the only way that the Liberal Party stands a chance is with a different leader right now, and there's actually a lot of polling data to back up the fact that Justin Trudeau isn't necessarily going to win right now. What you're doing is a Hail Mary, in your view. You're basically risking a lot in terms of access to potentially to cabinet, being perceived as rogue. You're risking a lot, and you're risking it because you want the Liberals to win. And so it makes the or else complicated to find because you don't want to, leave in a way that would actually harm the party. But I do think that a lot of people who are behind this are doing it because they are trying to, in their view, save their party. And that's why we're having a really hard time understanding their motives and how they're so persistent and why they're so frustrated by not being listened to. We just had Valérie Plante not resign, but announce she was not going to run again as the mayor of Montreal. And it's interesting because it triggered a whole conversation here in Quebec about how it's important for leaders, maybe after 2 terms, to pass on the baton, and it's okay for people to pass on the baton. And I'm having this conversation in Ottawa where people are mocking people, are being mocked for basically telling Justin Trudeau, maybe it's not too good to hold on to power for too long, and a different leader would be a good thing for the Liberal Party. And those people are being mocked. And I think it's really interesting that we only see, the value of leaders passing on the baton when we want to see it. I don't think they're crazy. I don't think they're necessarily right. I think they can be harming their own party by not putting this to rest when it's time. But I think it's important to also understand what their argument is, where they're coming from.
No, look, I understand their argument because I've been speaking to them since the beginning of this as one of the first reporters on this. And they are worried about the party getting demolished. They're worried about a Kathleen Wynne situation nationally. But when you collect the signatures and make this demand and it goes public, and then you don't have the courage to put all of your names in front of the Prime Minister, and then you're not offering a very specific alternative other than you gotta go. It's okay, but what is it you're doing here? It's sort of my question. I understand their concerns, right, about where they think they're going to end up, but what is it you want done other than he goes? And when you aren't even willing to raise your hand in a private caucus meeting and say, I signed that, here's the names, take it seriously. That's what I'm confused with, and I think that's why it's failed to land with a bunch of the Liberals. But you're dead right on the concerns. They want to raise the ceiling, but they also risk blowing the floor up with the way they're going. Is where it is. Okay.